second time working on I Can't Breathe. The first time you were assistant director for it with Marble City Opera, and now you will be co-directing it with Pop. So what were your experiences like the first time, and what do you see happening the second time around?
When I was first made aware that this opera was being produced, it was from the wife of my former opera professor in grad school, Catherine Frady Marvel. And so I was like, oh man, that'd be such a cool opportunity to get to work with her. And I was like, oh man, I really want to sing in it. So I went to audition. And so they were doing season-wide auditions, but I was like, I want to do I Can't Breathe. And so that's the only thing I went in there really prepared to, get anything for. And so I didn't hear anything back. And so Catherine contacted me about a week or two later, and she said that they were going with a different person for the mother role, which is because I'm a soprano and that's the only other soprano. I was like, oh man. And so I was like, but I mean, I get it. I never get down when I don't get a role. And so, but she said, but we also need somebody to assist and direct, and we saw your resume, would you be interested? And I was like, me? I have done directing before, but I was honored that she asked. And so when I was first learning about this production, I was really interested in really wanting to bring those characters alive, really wanting to tell the stories. And it's such a heavy concept that I wanted to make sure that it was dealt with respect, but also giving the importance that it needs to in order to make this story realistic. And so that's something that I really wanted to help the director out and do. And I think we did a pretty good job on it in Knoxville. When I heard it was going to LA, I was like, man, I wonder if I could talk to them and maybe I could get on and maybe be a stagehand. I'm always just so enamored with the theater, like anything that I can do, whether it's props, costumes. Like I love to sing, that's what I have both of my degrees in, but it's anything that I can do to really just be a part of the action, be inside. And that's really what I want, just any way I can help out.
So now you're directing this opera for the second time. What sort of things do you have planned?
So there's a few different things that Josh and I have been discussing. We noticed that the whole production is made up of monologues, which by themselves, they're pretty powerful. But when you're talking to somebody for a long period of time, we don't want the audience to kind of phase out and not really be focused on the words. We're like, we need to put some more action in. And so we were talking about having the characters, when they're talking about things that happened in the past, having those things also act out on stage with other supers and maybe some other cast members. And so when that memory is gone, then those people fade away and they go away, and it's back to the main character, the person who's actually telling the story. We also talked about maybe breaking the fourth wall a bit, talking directly to the audience, because it's a collection of stories. It's not just I'm just telling you about this thing, but I am trying to relay this thing that has actually happened to me and really connect person to person. And so Josh and I are really collaborating, and we've come up with some really cool ideas that I think are really going to be powerful and really going to be understood by the audience.
So give us a little bit of a background of your directing history. What was the first opera you directed, and what has your experiences been like?
I think of this as in like phases. So when I was in grad school, we did have to do some directing, and so we directed different scenes. So we did some scenes when we were in grad school. I selected to do a scene from Porgy and Bess, and so that was really cool. The next thing that I did after I graduated with my master's, I went back to my undergrad at Oakwood University, and they said, "Oh, we need somebody to do opera workshop. You're here. Can you do it?" And I was like, "Okay, let's let's do it." My first full-length opera that I did was Old Maid and the Thief with Opera Huntsville, and that was really interesting because we did it 3 times, and every time we did it, we had a different venue. At Opera Huntsville, we're about making opera accessible. And so you don't have to drive 20, 30 miles away to find opera. We will travel to you. And so that is something that was really cool. And that's something I really love about the company. So that was my first full full-length opera that we did, and it was really fun. Again, I'm around and I love the theater. And so any way that I can do something in the theater, like right now I'm helping my dad who's building the set. And so I'm like, okay, what's going on? I got my little screwdriver, like anything I can do to help out. That is me.
Tell me a little bit about what it's like directing an opera about Black stories.
It's definitely different. Because you can also direct a Black story with not necessarily a full Black cast. You can also direct a Black story with an entirely Black cast. And so I think there's, depending on what story you're trying to tell, you'll have two different experiences. And so with I Can't Breathe, when I first got into rehearsal and I looked around and it's like, everybody looks like me. It's like, oh, okay. And everybody is super talented and we're all here trying to get to a main goal. It was exhilarating just being able to be like with my people and really put on this really high class art and put forth this effort that is not normally seen every day. It's truly, I mean, it's a blessing to be able to do work like this. And I want more things to happen, and not just about, such a heavy story, but sometimes just about love. It doesn't always have to be so heavy, and it's not always deep in racism or death or things like that. Even though those stories are important, sometimes we also can get the happy ones as well. There is always a time where you have to be creative. As a director, I never saw myself, sitting in like the director's chair. I never saw that. I went to school. I was like, I'm going to sing. I'm going to be on stage. I'm going to be a famous opera singer. That's going to be me. And life was like, well, you can do all these other things as well. Why not? Why limit yourself? And so, um, it's always interesting when you have to force yourself to be creative, when you've done a project before but you don't want to do it the same way twice, especially when you're doing it for a different audience, when you're doing it for a different state. You have to think about what can be different. How can I tell these stories a different way? If the way we did it in Knoxville is completely different how we're going to do it in LA, and I'm sure the next company that does it is going to do it different than how we do it in LA. And so there's a way that you have to give respect to the piece every time it's touched. You got to give respect to the characters. The mother may be somebody different, and maybe there's some strengths or some weaknesses that actor had that maybe the previous one didn't. And knowing who your characters are, knowing who your actors are going to be, who your singers are going to be, you've got to take all of that into account. And I think that's for any piece that you pick up, but specifically one that's dealing with such heavy content. It's what can I do to respect it, and what can I do to make it real again?
And so will you be having those conversations with the singers when they come into the space, trying to see where they're at and what they're bringing to the character?
Absolutely. I think that's very important, because the way that I may be envisioning the athlete may be different than how the singer is envisioning them. And so I think of him as a really upbeat type of person, really just invigorating for life, but he may see it as, oh, well, he just finished a basketball game. He may be a little tired. And so if we're not on the same page, then the audience may not get the same effect that they should be getting. So having that conversation with the singers, with the actors, making sure you're on the same page and that we're both giving respect to the character is very important. That's the only way we can respect the piece.
Is there a character or a moment in I Can't Breathe where every time you hear it or you see it, you really connect with it, or it just gets you?
I mean, there's so many, just like, I wouldn't even say hidden gems, because the music is just so beautiful. I just sit there because the first time I was like also doing stagehand stuff, moving things on and off the stage. But sometimes I'd be backstage and just enamored by the beautiful voices and the beautiful music and the legato line that Leslie Burrs put into some of the clarinet parts. And I'm just like, I gotta focus, the next scene's coming up, and I just get drowned in the music. But I think particularly some of the character is called The Thug. Some of his music, it's one of the longest pieces in the opera, but some of his music is just chef's kiss. It's just so beautiful. And when we did it in Knoxville, Jacob Lay, like it was amazing. The way he could just pull out those lines. And I sat behind stage once, and anytime that I heard something, I wrote down, I was like, these 5 parts are my favorite that you sing. And I was like, I know this is weird, but this, like, I gave him like this little piece of paper.
Why is this opera important?
I think this opera is important because even though the characters are fictional, they are based off of real experiences that have occurred. So the thug is based off of George Floyd, and the athlete is based off of Trayvon Martin, and the scholar is based off of Botham Jean in Dallas. And I'm from Dallas. When I saw it on the news, I was like, I know exactly where that is. And these stories, even though the characters themselves are fictional, they're nameless. They don't have names. They're just referred to by, you know, what's listed in the program. The stories are important because it's truth. It's something that, as Black Americans, we deal with daily. It is the interactions that we have with the police officers that are not on the force for the correct reasons. And that these things are not just one-offs. It's not just, you know, one bad apple or, you know, an isolated incident. It's that these things happen too often. And in my household, with my family, my parents, my siblings, my cousins, when we hear it on the news, we say it's another one. And that it's not that those are the only ones that we hear about on the news. How many people who we don't know about, that we don't hear about, you know, and this is important because this lets people know that this whole idea of the police officers not being on the force for the right reasons, and everybody not having the same access to safety, and the fact that the benefit of the doubt, sometimes you're not even safe in your own home, as in like Botham Jean. And so these operas like these, the ones that give the heavy material and are focused on telling truth, are so important to those that may not fully understand, the ones that are skeptical, the ones that say that this isn't everybody's reality. And by it being a fully Black cast, by there being a female woman director, by, you know, Black artists being a part of the production, and we're saying, yes, it is. This is our reality. This is what we deal with. And this is the story that we want to tell you. And we hope that you receive it.
What do you think the long-term impact of I Can't Breathe will be?
I think that until equality is achieved in the United States on all levels, that this opera will have a place. I'm sure the last shooting was not the last, which is, it's horrible to say that, but you know, when is the next one going to be reported on the news? And until we can achieve equality, until we can achieve the benefit of the doubt, until we can feel safe in our own homes, then this opera is going to have a place. It may be, I don't know how many companies will have the courage to produce it. How many companies are going to see the importance of it. But regardless of what other people deem to be important, this opera can stand on its own as a beautiful piece, as a story of people, of characters that have experienced something tragic, and the people around them have also experienced the same, just like us. When we see, you know, a Trayvon Martin on the news, or we see a George Floyd in the news, or Alton Sterling, or a Sandra Bland, you know, when we see these people, those are also us. We can also connect to them. And so that's what this opera is. It's going to stay there. It's going to be kind of as a memorial to those that have fallen unjustly. I want to say I'm just blessed to be able to be a part of I Can't Breathe for the second time. I was blessed the first time, and now I'm getting double blessed again. And the fact that I get to come to California, I've only been to California once. I was like, what, California, this is great. And so I'm just happy to be a part. I love art, and I love the theater, and I love telling stories, regardless if it's I Can't Breathe or Mozart. I love giving that easiness to the audience, coming to see a show, coming to get a message, coming to receive art. And I'm just so blessed to be able to do that.
Well, we're blessed to have you, really.
Oh,
You wouldn't have been able to, I mean, all of the hard work, you all laying the groundwork. It was like Sierra needs to be a part of it a second time.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that.